Hey everybody, welcome back to another review. Today, as you've noticed by the title, we're doing the critically acclaimed Resident Evil 4 Remake. One that not only I have been waiting for 1,000 years, but everybody else. Ever since this first game came out, people have been going nuts about it. For a good reason. It's a great game. I've loved playing the original. I played through all of the original once fully. I've started 4 or 5 different playthroughs, but never finished it again. One on VR, which an amazing port for Resident Evil 4 was VR. Oh my god, like it actually works really well. Um, Going back to the remake though, um, Capcom outdid themselves again. I think with these remakes, there's that have been for 2, 3, and 4. Capcom really hasn't done a flop. I think the worst one was Resident Evil 3's remake, and not even because it was a bad game, but because it was really short. If they had kept it longer or added more stuff in from the original, as if you weren't aware, Capcom did take out a lot of the original, including like 2 separate areas of the map, along with an enemy type as well. But we're not talking about them. We're talking about the 4's remake. I can't even count on one hand how many times not how many times, but how many complaints I have about this game. I've played through it entirely on standard just to enjoy it, not to give myself too hard of a challenge, but to just enjoy the playthrough. And I'm gonna play it again definitely soon. As my God, that was such a phenomenal game. The movement, they just keep adding on to what they've already done with the remakes with great movement. Um, the combat just feels so silky and smooth. I mean, there was no point where I got bored of the combat or just like, oh man, here's another parry, here's another melee attack, whatever. Let me just kill this guy. Um, Even on standard, the enemies themselves, like the basic enemies, they keep you on your toes. Um, Especially if there's at least 3 of them, you could get a run for your money, whether one's behind you and grabs you and they're just holding you back while the other's coming to hit you from the front. Um, that part of the game does build a good amount of tense situation. Um, I think the only things, if we're nitpicking, that I really had a complaint for this game was um, that in the original, in every save uh, room, there'd be specific music in there. And if you don't know what that sounds like, you should definitely look it up. It's it's quite tranquil, if you will, especially for being in a combat based game. Going into this room to save, just to hear that is just wonderful. But it's not in this game, which I'm not disappointed at. I'm not upset. I think it's fine because the game takes itself a lot more serious than the original in terms of comedy and campiness, which the original Resident Evil 4 definitely had a lot of that. And it kind of gave it more personality, which was really fun to play through for the first time. Whether it be Leon's one-liners or just something that a character would do that just didn't seem right, or even like looking into all the campiness of the game, there'd be like a scene where if you looked up where Ashley is above you on a ledge, and if you look up to try and look up her skirt, she'd be like, "Hey, you pervert! You can't do that." And that's not in the game. The game takes itself a lot more serious. The jokes in this game are minimal, and they're not great jokes, but they fit to Leon's new character theme, where he is still a soldier, just like he was in the original. He's been trained by the government. He's tasked to rescue Ashley. This game, unlike the other remakes, like the original games as well, is a lot longer than the second and third installment. And again, I didn't feel bored or just like I was just running through the motions playing any of it. All of the story felt great. The game itself entirely looks phenomenal. Whether it be the set piece in the background, the actual characters, the RE engine that Capcom has developed has just been wonderful. Um, it looks so good, and I can't really think of a game that's been running on RE engine that I've been disappointed in. I think the next thing, I do appreciate the puzzles in this game. They're not like mind-boggling puzzles. Like, this is going to take you at least a few YouTube guides to find out how to do this one. But no, the puzzles in this game are actually like the original. They pretty much reused the same puzzles. However, they used them in different areas of the game. So you're not using up the same puzzle in the same spot. Like in the original, you would have to remember 3 gravestones in front of the church and go behind it and activate that. In the new one, you each get a new challenge, destroy these gravestones, and then they reuse that specific puzzle in an entirely different spot in the map, which I do appreciate feeling a little more fresh, if you will. I think it's really nice. I'd say the next thing, the merchant, he's still a pretty solid character. His lines are iconic at this point. I'm not gonna go through them, but I'll say one. Is whenever he opens his jacket, he's like, "What are you buying?" Or sorry, that's too cringe. But back to the point. The characters on screen get a lot more development than they did in the original. Than being just you're this character, this you are. You actually dive into who this character is. Leon feels more like a person, if that makes sense, because they're expanding definitely on what happened in Resident Evil 2, which they do that in the original, just not to the extent of this new one. And like I said, the game is taking itself a lot more serious. So it's not just like Leon's just having fun the whole time. He does, like I said, give a few jokes. They're not, they're not peak comedy or anything. So they do what they can. I say another thing that I appreciated from the game was kind of the more finer details. So there's a section of the map where you go onto a lake and use a boat, obviously. But in this area, there is a boss entitled The Lake. And it only comes out when you get to this section of the map, onto your boat and driving through it. However, a small detail they kept from the original game was if you go up to the dock, before you even get there, if you just shoot a few bullets into the water, it'll just insta-kill you. You're just dead. Like nothing can prevent it. Which, it's nothing crazy. It's not like, oh man, you can die like this? That's so cool. It's a secret death, and I do appreciate that. How they kept it the same. There was one secret death that I didn't get, because I think they took it out for good. But it's in the original, you could shoot your partner Luis, and when you're doing like a survival part of the game, where you are trapped inside of a house with him and you're defending against all of the zombies coming after you, and if you shoot him enough in the original, he'll be like, "All right, Leon, I've had enough," and he'll just shoot you a few times and you die in insta death. And I did waste a life on this, but I would unload all of my rounds into him to the point where I actually used a rocket launcher to try and kill him, and he didn't nudge. He's like, "Hey, are you trying to kill me?" And I very much was, but I didn't succeed and in killing him or dying, so it's fine. But um, I don't know really how much else to talk about this game. I mean, it's a flawless game to me. I can't really count an issue unless I'm nitpicking again. The only time I experienced a bug in the game was I destroyed a box, point A, like 2 hours in the game, and then I came back 6 hours later, and the box was broken but still intact. If that makes sense, like you could see through it, and you know, it's nothing crazy. I mean, it only happened once. Everything else just worked perfectly. So, um, I mean, again, no complaints here. I will say they are setting up for the next game as well, which I would like to see more remakes, which I know they definitely will, seeing as how profitable they are now. I'd, however, like to see some of the more side games come to remakes rather than Resident Evil 5. Because Resident Evil 5, as popular as it is, it's still kind of current. And for those who might know, or even if you don't know, you should definitely look into it. Resident Evil Outbreak, which is a game where it takes place during Resident Evil 2, but instead of playing as Leon and Claire, you're playing as, basic everyday people that would be just living their lives, trying to survive in a zombie outbreak. It's a great game. There's 2 games of that, maybe even a game called Code Veronica or Resident Evil Zero. I'd like to see remakes of those. I don't think we need a remake of what's called Operation Raccoon City, where you're playing as more soldiers during those events in Resident Evil 2 and 3. I don't think those are needed. I definitely like them. I think they're really cool, especially because it's a multiplayer game. But I think I am just looking forward to anything we get, including the final scene of Resident Evil 4 remake. We get to see Wesker from Resident Evil 5 in pretty good HD quality. He doesn't have that the more sillier voice to him, because the game again is not silly at all. It takes itself a lot more serious, and I can see Capcom definitely continuing to move away from silly content. There's a few moments in the game where it like embraces it, like Leon and another character named Jack Krauser are fighting with knives, but they're going really fast, just like dodging and blocking each other with knives. And the camera's just going all over the place trying to capture them. And it's fun. And there's another scene where Leon just gets thrown to the other side of a room by this other guy. All pretty cool stuff. I'd say the bosses, they're really well made. The design of them is beautiful. I think for me, because I knew how to beat them and how to play the game pretty much, they weren't hard, but I was playing on standard, which I didn't read before. I just kind of chose standard, saying it's standard, but it was like also, if you've already played the original, you should play hardcore, not standard. And it doesn't matter to me. I also would have probably still chosen standard because I just wanted to enjoy my experience, which I definitely did 100%. And I think that's probably where I'm going to wrap up, because I've talked about this game a decent bit. I can't really say much more about it. It's a great game. I have no complaints again. And yeah, I'd say overall I'd give it 9.5 out of 10. So 95%, if you will, depending on what you would rather hear a rating on. But give it a 95 thumbs up. Yeah. So that's gonna do it for me today. If you like my content or want to hear me talk about anything else, please put it down in the comments. I will definitely respond when I see it. I know my upload schedule has been the greatest, but we're working on it. And this is also definitely a big passion game that I've had coming out for a while. In case I made it sound like I didn't make it, but I have been awaiting this game for too long. Not too long, because I love this game and I love the original. And this game only builds upon what worked well and continues to build more than do that. Just absolutely phenomenal game. I would recommend it to everybody that can buy it or play it. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day. See ya.